All right, guys. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. It's your girl, Shaymat. And today I want to address a really important topic. I feel like there's a lot of confusion around this topic. A lot of people are confused and don't know what to do. They don't know what to think. And they're kind of just in this on this fence feeling. Okay, so the topic for today's video is going to be addressing the victim's mindset in an abusive relationship. So this is going to be a trigger warning. I'm giving it to you guys out here. I'm going to try to help you guys. My intention with today's video is to help you guys understand what really goes on inside a victim's mind in a highly toxic, highly abusive relationship, and why their behaviors may seem a little bit like confusing to you guys. It may seem like it's an obvious thing. Why stay in a situation if you're getting abused? But a lot of the times you don't even realize you're getting abused. I would say that's like number one. Number one, the metaphor I would use is carbon monoxide. Okay. You don't see it. You can't smell it. There's no indicator that you're just breathing this air. That's why it's called the silent killer, for a reason. And you're breathing this air in and you're like, I feel funny, but everything seems to be all right. Why do I feel funny? It's like, maybe I'm the problem. Maybe something's going on with me. You're not even realizing you're inhaling this thing. And the more you inhale it, the more it's destroying you and killing you on the inside. Okay, so I'm going to try to break this down to the best of my abilities, and I'm going to start using some of the things that, if you're a victim of abuse, I pray that this message will find you in the best of health and iman, and I pray that this will empower you. And for those who know somebody that is a victim, I pray that you will now have some tools, some resources to know how to, support and be an ally to a victim of abuse. And I'm going to specifically focus on women today, women as the victim. And that's, I'm not saying that men can't be victimized. I'm just saying that today's conversation is going to be specifically with women in mind. Number one fear, okay, that a victim feels when she comes out about her abuse is the fear of not being believed, okay? And I need you guys to understand that fear is very serious emotion, okay? It can drive you to make wrong decisions. Okay, fear means you are not safe. It means you are in fight or flight mode. Your brain isn't thinking logically. Okay, so that's number one. Whoever you are, judging a situation about somebody that you don't know, you are number one, feeling safe. You're not in danger, and you are in a privileged position to think logically. So when you try to judge the other person who is a victim, they are not in a logical state of mind. Okay, so you are judging their behavior when you are feeling safe and they're not. So that's not really a fair, assessment. Okay. Number two, the fact that you don't believe her. Okay. Dr. Nahla mentioned something with respect to how you support a victim, because when you start to dismiss and say, oh, it can't be possible, you are basically reacting to how your relationship is with that abuser. Okay. And you have to understand that your relationship with that abuser, it could be from a community perspective. Are you the husband? Are you the wife of that person? No, you're not. You the sibling. Your relationship is different. So don't judge your relationship, which is very minimal, versus being a wife of an abuser. That's two different dynamics. They're not the same. Completely different dynamics. So again, privilege, right? You're in a different position than the victim. Okay. So, but I want to add something to that. The fact that you don't actually believe the victim is proof positive that you're doing the same thing that she did. Okay? We're like, well, why would you stay in an abusive relationship? Well, you think the person's so great. She thought the person's so great. It was hard for her to believe that it was the little micro bullets that were every single time being shot her way, that compiled overall over a period of time into this thing called abuse. When you first get abused, it sounds so minimal that if she actually left on the first red stripe, it's like, whoa, really? You left him for that? Like, wow. Like, you're going to end a whole marriage because he was having a bad day, clearly. Like, you know what I'm saying? That's what it would look like. Okay? So the fact that you are also reacting, you're judging her for the same thing that you're doing right now, which is you can't possibly believe that this person, I mean, they do khutbahs and they correct one's tajweed, and this person is, God's gift to mankind's got a beard longer than Dumbledore. And you know what I'm saying? Like, how could he possibly be what she's, I can't believe it. There's no way. The guy does charity. What are you talking about? And so that's the same thing she was thinking in her head. I thought I married a catch. I thought, he got presented himself like Jesus and turns out to be the Antichrist, freaking Dajjal. You know how shocking that is to somebody's system? To know, like, hey, I married the devil. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's crazy. It's a traumatic thing. And it's like mixed with all these good things. You're like, but then they do this and this. You can't seem to consolidate the two thoughts. That's exactly what's going on in her mind. You're doing the exact same thing. So just FYI, when you think you know the whole situation and you can't seem to comprende what's going on. Okay, another point. Well, she's so abused. Why not just speak up, right? Why now? After however many years, 5 years, 10 years, 2 years, 6 months. Why wait till now if you were really abused? Okay, we're gonna address this point too. A lot of the times, and I'm specifically not only talking about women, I want to also caveat this with saying Muslim women, okay? A lot of the times, what holds a Muslim woman back from doing the right thing is the fear of doing the wrong thing. I'm going to say that again. A lot of the times, what holds a Muslim woman back from doing the right thing and speaking up against the abuse is the fear of doing the wrong thing, which is disclosing what is supposed to be hidden, right? Y'all use the hadith of, whoever covers the sin of the person, Allah will cover their sins. Oh, you're the wife, you're not supposed to disclose what happens in the household, right? And there is, of course, no boundary line or whatever. Like, there's no distinction. When does, because abuse by default is a sin. So when you say, you're exposing the sin, abuse is sin. Of course it's a sin. You know what I'm saying? So, like, and especially abuse in the form of the person's abusing substances. The person is, committing zina. They're, cheating on the person. There's infidelity going on. There is whatever. That's a major freaking sin. So she's stuck between, I need to tell what's going on and say this is what's happening, but I'm also stuck because if I do, am I backbiting? Am I committing ghaiba? Because in Islam, there is a huge punishment for that. So where does that line get drawn? That's the dilemma with the person, right? And also, there's another component. You invested so much in this relationship. A lot of the times women, they don't want to give up on their guy because they wouldn't want someone to give up on them if they ever made a mistake or if ever they did anything. Right? So there's always this whole, like, treat others the way you would want to be treated. If you were messing up or you had an addiction or you had whatever, you're like, I wouldn't want somebody to leave me. Right? These are thoughts, and these are genuine thoughts of people, Another component, okay, another issue. So I'm trying to put these parallels for you guys so you guys can understand. I can go on for days about this topic. Is the distinction between husn al-dhan, which is benefit of the doubt, right? You're told, give benefit of the doubt for whatever. There's a difference between benefit of the doubt, and at this point, you're denying the truth. You're denying reality, right? But at what point does that transition come along, right? Because when you have to understand also like the severity of accusation, cheating, substance abuse, like these are very serious like accusations. They cannot be taken lightly. And when the person's gaslighting you and telling you you're tripping, you're insecure, you're this, you're that, and when you come to family with those issues and you're like, listen, I'm having a difficulty. Okay, let's say this person chose to forgive this person and be patient and wants them to work through their addiction. Let's say that woman made that decision. Okay, she made that decision. She's struggling with trusting, but she's willing to still put in the work. The person isn't doing anything to build up that honor and that trust. And discloses that. That's West. That's shaitan. Shaitan's getting to you. Which brings me to my other point. This is the other disease we have in the Muslim community. The guy could do whatever wrong. And when you bring it up, husnul dhan, benefit of the doubt. Let's think of any good reason, any good intention. Let's try to play God and go into his intention and try to justify the evil that he just did and all the evil behaviors and all the emotional and mental abuse. But the girl could do everything right. She could cook clean, look like a freaking model that stepped out of Vogue and got everything tight. And it's like somehow, some way your intention must have been skewered. That's the problem. The men will make mistakes, severe issues, and they'll get husnul dhan, good intention. Let's find an excuse to justify this wrong. But the girl, she could do everything right. But let's judge your intention. Your intention wasn't pure enough. This guy is your heaven and your hell. I don't think y'all comprehend. It's so easy for you guys to just judge and cast judgment on somebody, without taking the time to actually be empathetic and go into their shoes. You know what I'm saying? Actually sitting down with it and simmering like, And the other big issue that we have in the Muslim community is that we fear what people will think and say of us versus what God would think and say of us. The fear of people is greater than the fear of God himself. That's the why we have a lot of the issues that we have. Why a lot of family will not even support their own daughters. Okay? They won't even support their own daughters or be like, what would people say? You were 32 when you got married. Who's going to marry you now after you're divorced? It's like, you know what I'm saying? The girl's getting punished for doing everything she was told she's supposed to do. And so then the girl's suffering with spiritual PTSD. You know what I'm saying? We have literally spiritual abuse. The very thing that's holding her hostage is the very thing that could set her free, and that's knowledge of the Deen. And that's why, my dear brothers and sisters, it is so incumbent to know the Deen. Not for haram policing thing, not to know your rights, to know your exit plan. You need to know these things. I'll tell you what the issue is. A lot of women nowadays are ready for a marriage, but a lot of the times they're not ready for a toxic marriage. And what I mean by that is because nowadays, what looks wrong is, the people that are causing the fitna are people who are the ones that we say are that's the golden standard, right? The person who's the hafiz, the person who's a shaykh, the person who's, a doctor, lawyer, engineer, whatever. And they have everything right. This is what you're supposed to strive for, right? As if that makes you infallible to any type of mistakes that shaitan can get you to do, right? As if that makes you somehow being hafiz the Quran means you can't have addictions. You know what I'm saying? It's this, really skewed understanding. So a lot of the times you set up your daughter for marriage, not realizing you hooked her up in a toxic marriage, and now she doesn't know what's up. No one trained the sister. No one's sitting there training people like, oh, this is what's going on. People are sitting there trying to, think of happily ever after, or whatever the case is. So anyways, I'm going to go, because Instagram will give you 15 minutes. I'm going to do in my next video where I'm going to talk about, the other girls who are involved in a situation where, for example, infidelity says, well, how come they're the victims? I mean, they, whatever. I'm going to explain that too, since we're having a hard time understanding how women could be victims of this type of abuse, predatory-like behavior, since, there's a struggle in understanding that. So we're gonna try to break it down, inshallah. I'm going to try my best, and hopefully this can enlighten some people. All right, part 2. So, y'all are struggling with understanding how can a girl who ends up sleeping around with a sheikh or whatever the case is. How is she the victim of, and how come he's the predator? I mean, she technically gave him up. Now, the number one problem is that when you're making that assessment and you're making that judgment, you're thinking about yourself in your state of mind right now, okay? And that you're talking from a position of, again, privilege, where you're strong right now, or maybe that's not a fitna for you. Something else might be a fitna that may not be for that person. But what I'm trying to say is, you are looking at it from your own self, that because you wouldn't do it. And then you're projecting that standard on her, okay? With your own life experiences and your own type of whatever. How are you going to put that on somebody else and you don't know what their life is? You're talking from a position of where maybe you had a two-parent household and you had a great childhood upbringing. And that person might have come from a broken home. You know what I'm saying? So don't put that standard and expectation in all your upbringing on somebody else and expect, oh, that's why they're messed up. No, let me tell you something. And this is not to justify zina at the end of the day. It's not to justify whatever, but we have a serious dilemma in the Muslim community. We have a serious disease. And if we don't address it, we're going to have serious issues. Okay? The reason I'm saying, why are these girls also victims? Because you don't know that this person came to a person of knowledge. Someone who's young, someone who's relatable, somebody who gets it. Because you have old sheikhs who will just basically are very misogynistic and very patriarchal in their approach, and nothing really Islamic about their approach. Pretty much just the culture. Just be like, you're the imam of culture, insert Arab country or whatever other country you're from. Just say that. Those are your imam of Islam, because then at this point we're just all confused. You know what I mean? What kind of Islam are you practicing? There's only one Islam, so there can't be another version of Islam. But yeah, so this person, she could be vulnerable, right? Her guy's abusing her. Her parents are abusing her. I don't know. Something crazy is going on. She comes in a vulnerable state. A woman is already vulnerable. She's even more vulnerable when she has no support, has nothing. And she sees this person, wow, it's so nice. Or I just asked one question and, oh, they're so nice. And then this person is so nice, they're following up. Or at least that's what it looks like. You're like, oh, they're just following up. Or are they exploiting the situation? It looks like a follow-up, right? It looks like a follow-up. But no. They're grooming you. It's a slow process. Slow, very slow. No one goes in, oh yeah, let me just go and, you know what I mean? That's why it's called khutuwat al-shaytan for a reason. The footsteps of shaitan for a reason. You know what I'm saying? So this person, you know, could come at this person and be like, oh, you know, this happened to me. What should I do? Oh, you should da-da-da. Wow, this person's so understanding. Thank you so much. Hey, let me touch base with you. Hey, how are you doing? I was thinking about you the other day, about what you said. I just want to make sure you're all right. You're safe. Yeah. Oh my God. Thank you so much. You're so great. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And the next thing you know, the person's like, you know what? Like, I didn't mean to fall for you, you know, but you seem like a great sister. Like, I'd like to get to know you better for the purpose of marriage. Oh, but aren't you married? Oh no, actually my marriage didn't work out. Oh, what happened? Oh, we're both two good people, but we weren't the right fit. You know? Now, people say, oh, did he talk bad about his ex? That's how I know he's straight. Nah, their game changed, guys. Their game changed. That could be a one-liner right there. And you're like, wow, what a great person. He didn't talk smack about his ex. He must be good. You know what I mean? Our problems are our expectations and our standards. It's so messed up. It's so messed up. We need to really reassess and redefine. Okay? And next thing you know, she's a victim of his predatory behavior. Hit it, quit it, and leaves your hanging. What happened? I thought, what is... You don't want to know what it's like to be in that position. And it's unimaginable. It's unfathomable. It's really sickening. The person feels alone. They understand how they're going to be perceived as like the homewrecker, as whatever, even though those were information she was not privy to. A lot of thing goes into that. It's very predatory-like behavior. And one of the best examples of that would be Disney. Why did she go back to him? Why is she done? Let's break down almost every single movie. Almost every single princess, and let's actually do a breakdown. Cinderella, her dad, where is he? Dead. She has a stepmom that's so evil, abuses her. Girl, what saves her? A man. That's what saves her out of this made horrible, abusive relationship. Right? Aladdin and Jasmine. What happened with that? Right? She's in a palace. She's perfectly fine. Her dad, loves her and stuff, but is also protective. So the guy comes to her bedroom in a flying carpet and just says, I love you. And apparently words of affirmation, those words of love, is more important than action. The actions come after, you know? And so you fault people, you know, when you, from a very young age, the girl is trained to think that that's just what it is. You know what I mean? Like, the guy literally took you from your house with no, this person is literally a stranger, and you're supposed to, because if you don't, like, you're gonna miss out on a prince or whatever the case is. I mean, the guy was actually a thief, bro. Like, Aladdin was freaking, him and his monkey, freaking monkeying around Agrabah or whatever that imaginary land is. You know what I'm saying? And used jinnies and black magic and all that stuff. And we romanticize that. Let's take that in. Beauty and the Beast. We have the first guy who's obviously so narcissistic and full of himself. But the other guy, this is the funny part. This is like the irony in the storytelling, is that we know he's a beast. He used to be a prince that was selfish and arrogant. He didn't do therapy while he was a beast the whole time. Nah, he was feeling sorry for himself. The guy, him and his beastly ways. And we know that. And we think, oh, look, she's so strong. The guy kidnapped her freaking father and had no mercy, you know? And then she tricked her father out of the things so that she would be in jail. And the guy locks her up. And then they try to humanize the beast and feel sorry for him because, oh, this other lady put him into this thing, into this spell because he was so selfish. Like, no apology or acknowledgement. The only thing that would get him out of the spell is that you would get a girl to fall in love with you. So he's like, who's gonna fall in love with me because of my way? Is he thinking about the girl? Is he thinking about how he could... No, he's thinking about himself and how he can get out of it because of the rose and the freaking falling petal or whatever the case is. You know what I'm saying? And then the funny part is that if you look at, like, the freaking tea set and all those plates and candles and whatever, they are exactly the community. The way they're, like, supportive. Oh yeah, we're so sorry. Yeah, he could be so mean, but you know, he's actually not that bad, and we're supporting you. But no, you're wanting her to fall for him because you guys want to not be a plate and a chandelier anymore. You want to be back to your human self, you know? So even they're selfish too. You know what I'm saying? And in the end, it's like, oh, because he saved her from the first evil guy, then he's the lesser of two evils. But look, he cried, and they humanized this beast. And we know he's a beast. That's the funny part. It's like, that's the joke's on you, is that he's literally a beast. You could see it, but let's humanize him, you know? And then, you know, let's draw on that emotional, empathetic side of you as a woman. You know what I mean? And that makes you like the hero. And look, you get a castle and a whole library full of books because you guys could read a book together. How beautiful. You know what I mean? And you wonder why, like, the person goes back. You know what I mean? Freaking Snow White and the 7 guys, like, grumpy and sad, and she has to be the nicer one and cater to all of them and be da-da-da, and, you know, and just, like, it's so sick and it's so twisted. You know, but we romanticize that and we make that the standard. You know what I'm saying? And that's the issue. You know, that's the issue 9 times out of 10. You know, there's also the fear of scarcity. Like, you know, like the girl always takes the hit more than the guy, right? Who's going to want you? Who's going to, oh, you have a kid now. You have this, you know, blah, blah, blah. Whatever crazy thing, you know? It's unfathomable. Honestly, it's the craziest thing ever. I don't think you guys can ever begin to imagine. And I think it's really important for us to really do something about this. Which brings me to another point. The comment about those who say, "Oh, I'm gonna wait till all the facts are there before I pass a judgment or say or do anything." They say you're part of the problem. Okay, I agree and disagree. Because again, as Muslims, that's the other issue, right? We're not supposed to like pass judgment and pass on information we don't have facts for, right? It's a serious crime, right? It's a serious crime. But at the same time, you don't have to pass judgment or pass information you're not 100% about. But that doesn't necessarily mean you can't still support the victim. You can't still be a neutral ally. You still can't be like, how can I support you? Do you know what I mean? Do you need a babysitter? Do you want me to take you to the doctor? Should I take you to a sheikh? Should I take you to the psychologist? You still could support the person without knowing any details. You know what I mean? No one's saying go around and pass around like, oh, the person did this, and you don't have evidence of it. Of course, there's evidence, you know, whatever. But again, like, there's rules and there's an etiquette. Because it's so easy being in the victim role, you can easily create a bigger harm, right? So we have to be careful. And that's the thing. It's so hard to say that too, because when you're in a victim situation, you're like, nothing hurts more than not being believed in that moment, and you feel so alone. 1,000,000%. But we also have to understand that there's rules and regulations in Islam set in place. That's why, letting the other guy say his story is not going to take away from your truth. If anything, when you say your truth and it gets judged and you win, it's even more powerful because he said his and yours still trumped it because it was the truth. You know what I'm saying? So we need to be very careful. And a lot of it boils down to lack of knowledge of the Deen. That's literally what it is. We are literally suffering in the West because we do not have proper Islamic foundational knowledge, because our systems aren't set up like that, And it's so easy for the people in the East who come from Muslim countries who've had Islamic education, or people in the West who had the privilege of living overseas and learning the Deen. It's so easy for you guys to talk from that position when we come from a scarcity situation. We're trying to hang on to the Deen as much as we can, and it's being used against us. The very thing that's supposed to bring us peace of mind and is the very thing that's harming us because we don't know it very well. SubhanAllah. You know what I'm saying? And I just want to empower every single sister who's going through a horrendous and toxic abuse. I want to say this one verse. For me, I find it to be one of the most incredible verses in the Quran. Surah Al-Mujadala. It says, Bismillah ar-Rahman قد سمع الله قول التي تجادلك عن زوجها وتشتكي إلى الله. Bro, that first verse, Allah says He heard the complaint of the woman who was she was defending her, she was pleading her case to the Prophet about her husband. And then وتشتكي إلى الله, she complained to Allah. And you know what she complained to her husband about? What she complained to the Prophet about her husband? He said that you're like my mother, you're like the back of my mother. He basically just wrote her off. Okay? Like, you're literally like, he kind of left her in like a hanging situation, which a lot of these women are like, they feel like they're hung. They don't know what to do, And I'm like, do you know the punishment, like, for him to get her back, what he has to do in those following verses? And that's what he did. I'm like, sister, whoever is watching this, if that was the standard and the punishment for someone who just said that to his wife and stressed her out like that, imagine one who cheated, lied, abused, gaslit you, destroyed you emotionally, mentally, psychologically, physically, broke you down. That's what I'm just like, if that was what that was, and if Allah said, I'm like, I just think it's so incredible how Allah speaks and defends the woman, It's like, it's absolutely incredible. It's absolutely incredible. Like, even when you look about the verses of talaq, when you look at the verse about how you're supposed to treat your wife, you're not supposed to leave her hanging. You're not supposed to leave her hanging. And a lot of times they do feel hung and they don't know what to do, And that's the thing about Muslim women, is that there's a khashya of Allah there. There's this fear that I'm going to do something, a greater harm or a greater injustice, and I'm going to be held accountable, It's so much more than that. I can make another video just to talk about even examples of what some certain gaslighting situations may sound like. You know what I mean? So when you see someone going through a tremendous pain, it took a tremendous amount of courage. Someone doesn't just come out and speak up the truth. You know what I'm saying? Like, for example, there is also the fear of, like, you're supposed to prevent an evil, right? You don't want this person to harm another person, another girl, right? But at the same time, you're like, if I disclose, am I committing ghaiba? Am I causing backbiting? And then it's like, oh, be careful, because if that person made sincere tawbah to Allah and you went and disclosed their sin, aka their abuse, oh, Allah's wrath is on you. You got to understand that that's what's going on in that person's mind. Like, what is that person supposed to do? And they don't have proper foundational knowledge. They don't know, obviously, the answer to this question. What would they do, right? So think about that next time, before you want to cast judgment, before you want to cast your stones on anybody else.